Chapter 9. The Big Race. The first part of Snowflake's plan was to get healthy. She went to visit Nurse Beatty every day for therapy. Every night she slept with bags of ice wrapped around her foot to make the swelling go down. 7 days passed. The swelling was gone. Even though Nurse Beatty had told Snowflake to use the crutches for 10 days, Snowflake felt strong enough to run in the big race. "I have never seen anyone make such a fast recovery. Seriously, it's a miracle," said Nurse Beatty. Snowflake just smiled and said, "Thanks for your help, Nurse Beatty." What Snowflake didn't tell Nurse Beatty was that she had been drinking one of her home remedies for the past 7 days. This concoction was to make her healthy quickly and give her extra energy. Mary was the only person she told. With Snowflake's permission, Mary wrote the recipe in her diary. If it worked, they could brew it together and sell it. This was part 1 of her plan. Part 2 was to happen during the big race. The big day arrived. Students, parents, relatives, friends, important people, and local celebrities all gathered in the stadium. The sun was shining. There was not one cloud in the sky, but there were strong gusts of wind. Mrs. Elm's hair ruffled in the breeze, as if it were a beehive buzzing with honeybees. There was a carnival-like atmosphere. People were buying hot dogs, cotton candy, and sugary drinks. People were waving handheld flags. It was loud and noisy. Even Mrs. Van Loeb could hear the cheers from the crowd. Students from kindergarten to grade 8 were in their racing shorts and sports shirts, stretching with excitement. Tish Hughes had photos of her dog, Spot, who had recently died from swallowing a bucket of spot remover, printed all over her shirt to honor his memory. Snowflake wore a tight shirt, running shorts, and a baseball cap worn backwards to hold her hair down. Nurse Beatty wrapped her ankle for support and glued her toes together. Snowflake felt aerodynamic from head to duck toe. Over the loudspeaker system, the stadium announcer, Foster Hewitt, welcomed everyone to the big race and announced the rules for the day.
Welcome to the big race. This is the day we've been waiting for all year. The students from each grade will race against their classmates, with boys and girls racing together. Grades 1 through 5 will run 100 meters. For grades 6 through 8, each race will be 2 laps of 400 meters, for a total of 800 meters. Gold, silver, and bronze medals will be awarded for first, second, and third place. Races will start with the kindergarten students, and we will work our way up to the grade 8 students.
Snowflake looked out at the oval track. She didn't expect a gold, silver, or bronze medal. But if she tried her best and her home brew worked, maybe she could finish in the middle. Cannonball shouted over to her, "Hey, Snowflake, how are your Frankenfeet? Did they let the animals out of the zoo today?" Then he shouted another rap ditty. "Icky dicky duck, we need a garbage truck. Tricky dicky truck, to collect this ugly duck. Get in the truck, you 3-toed duck. Booch, 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 booch. Our school will sneer, cheer and smile as you quack a mile to the city trash pile." Snowflake ignored him. She was only thinking about her plan. It was time for the grade 7 students to race. Snowflake and her classmates lined up at the starting line. They looked nervous. Tiny Dribble's knees rattled together. Cyclops' eyeglasses steamed up. Roy Rash and Roy Wayne, both of whom collected wristwatches for a hobby, kept setting and resetting the stopwatch function on their Irish and Swiss wristwatches. Anaconda looked tense too, like she might cough out a rabble of butterflies. Foster Hewitt looked down from his booth, ready to announce the runners and do the play-by-play. Coach Beefcake stood at the starting line. He saw the runners were in place. He looked up at the announcer. Foster Hewitt signaled a thumbs up. Coach Beefcake raised his arm.
On your mark. Get set. Go!
Foster Hewitt started to announce the race.
And they're off. Astronaut rockets to the front, creating space between him and Tish Hughes. Willie Catcher and Betty Won't are right behind. Willie Catcher, I bet he won't. But no one knows, we're only at the start of a 2-lap race. I see runners falling behind. Cannonball, Snowflake, and Tiny Dribbles are in the final 3 spots. Cannonball is already breathing heavy. I hear a flut, flut, flut sound from Snowflake's shoes. As the runners move into the first turn, Roy Rash is catching up to the front 4. He has come out of nowhere, as most Rashes do. He's followed by another Roy, Wayne Roy. Roy Wayne and Roy Rash are neck and neck in 5th and 6th. The weather is fine, but there's a tongue twister out there with the 2 Roys running hip to hip. Closing in on the front 6 runners of the Cats twins, Bob and Kitty Cats. All the other runners, Cyclops, Anaconda, D-Bands, Farley Fast, Mary Subiel, Joe King, and Heidi Har Har are bunched up at the turn. This is a disappointing start for Farley Fast, who's usually first and fairly fast, but Farley Fast is not first, he's 8th. There in the far straightaway, still on the first lap. It's Astronaut in the lead, but Roy Wayne and Roy Rash have moved into 2nd and 3rd. Challenging to shoes for 4th are the Cats twins. With the dogs on Hugh T-shirts, we've got cats and dogs in the race today. Betty Won't has moved into 8th. Two-eyed Cyclops is breaking away from the back of the pack. He's in 9th, but he'll have to keep an eye out for Anaconda, who has slithered her way out of the pack. She's in 10th. Cyclops, who is keeping one eye on Anaconda, is looking strong. In the back 10, it's Benz, Subiel, King, Har Har, and still further back it's Cannonball hopping along and Snowflake flapping along. Tiny Dribbles is trailing at the end. Here we go into the second turn. The front runners remain the same, but there is some movement in the back 10. Here comes Joe King. Behind King is Heidi Har Har. The 2 of them running together, Joe King and Heidi Har Har, is no laughing matter. King is in 11th and Har Har is in 12th. Cannonball is huffing and puffing. Snowflake shows a determined look as she's still at the back with no flurry, only flutter, as if her yellow shoes are greased with butter. Tiny Dribbles is trailing at the end. As they come into the first turn on lap 2, the top 6 remain the same. In 7th, it's Willie Catcher, and Betty Won't is in 8th. Here comes Anaconda. She's weaving in and out of the other runners. Will she catch Willie Catcher? She does. She sneaks her way past Willie Catcher and Betty Won't, and now Anaconda is a mere sneeze away from Tish Hughes. Conda passes through. Conda is now in 4th. More action in the middle of the pack. Coming out of the pouch is Mary Subiel. She's challenging D-Benz. Mary is coming on strong. Mary goes round D-Benz. Mary Subiel is in 7th. Fast is still in 8th. Cannonball and Snowflake are in the back. Tiny Dribbles is trailing at the end. Down the far straightaway, Heidi Har Har is turning it on. All joking aside, she's passing Joe King on the inside, and she smiles at King on the way by. Cyclops clips by Catcher and clops his way past 1, 2. There's no question Willie Catcher is falling further back. He's gassing out quickly. Cannonball, too, has his mouth wide open like he's trying to catch flies. They move out of the final turn. The final 100 meters, the crowd is on their feet. Everyone is cheering. Here come the runners. At the finish line, it's Dr. Knott for the gold, followed by Roy Wayne for the silver and Roy Rash for the bronze. Several runners are bunched up in a pack as they cross the line. It's too close to call. There are still 3 more runners to cross. 5 meters from the finish line, Snowflake has a burst of energy. She's right beside Cannonball. She leans toward him.
Foster Hewitt put his mouth close to the microphone.
It looks like Snowflake is shouting something at Cannonball.
Look, Snowflake said to Cannonball. Look at the man selling hot dogs up in the stadium. Cannonball spotted a man with a tray of hot dogs. Cannonball lost his concentration. His eyes were no longer fixed on the finish line, but were pointing up to the stadium. He was now thinking about the wonderful taste of a dozen frankfurters, loaded with cheeses of cheddar, feta, and brie, a medley of mustards, whole grain, stone ground, and brown sauces of chimichurri, piri-piri, and chop suey soy, peppers pickled, chili sweetened and green, and honey, chutney, and dill. Faster than the food fantasy passing through Cannonball's mind, Snowflake passed Cannonball.
It's Snowflake finishing 16th, Cannonball 17th, and Tiny Dribbles trailing at the end.
The runners hovered around the finish line, catching their breath. Nurse Betty walked over to inspect the runners to make sure they were okay. Snowflake raised her arms in victory. Mary pulled out her diary, which she wore on her kangaroo belt. This was the most important event of the year, history in the making. She wrote down everyone's name in the order they finished. Instead of interviewing the medal winners first, she ran over to Snowflake for her first interview. Snowflake still had her arms raised in victory. Snowflake, you finished 16th, but your plan worked. You distracted him. You beat Cannonball. Yeah, the second part of our plan worked. I beat the nastiest boy in the school. It's a personal victory. Cannonball cranked his head toward Snowflake. He clearly overheard her. I can't believe you tricked me. I will seek revenge, he threatened. He rolled out another hip-hop tune. Revenge, revenge is now my aim. You put my reputation to shame. Enough of your duck feet shenanigans. I'll make sure you never run again. For the first time since her first day in class, Snowflake was scared. Cannonball had a talent for hip-hop, but his words were hurtful. He's a destroyer, not a builder, she thought.